know, on your tax bill, it is a separate tax on that library. So the library tax did increase, which is why our municipal tax rate went down just a bit, so that we could offset this cost. So their tax levy change was $4,000 and change. Their increase was $26,988 for the library tax. So our review year over year, I'm not going to go through all of it, but as you can see, we do have some increases here, our local municipal increases. Our surplus is flat. We got a little more in New Jersey state aid, a little bit on the shared service. Our UCC fees went down, library tax went up, other special items in our budget went down, and total revenues collectively were down. Our general appropriations and reserve fund collect taxes. So our total appropriations, we actually came down in the budget this year. So this is a huge credit to each one of our department and division heads working directly with the administration and with Brandon and I to ensure that we always are providing the best services for our residents. Nothing was being cut. They all did and sat down and got almost everything they asked for. Can't always give the moon and the stars, but they have. And so our municipal budget has gone down a little bit this year. This is a little bit of a hard, I'm sorry, it's an eye chart, it's even an eye chart for me a little bit, but this slide, and I think we have copies for people, this actually will break down exactly what our residential assessed value collectively in the borough is $655, 283, 300 million, yes. So the residential units we have are a little over 2,500. The assessed value, the average assessed value, and this is interesting, given that we know that the housing market has skyrocketed, but we have kept our residential assessed value at $258,000. So our tax rate is 1.019. So the average residential tax on that assessed property at $258,000 is $2,635.65. That's your municipal piece of it. So we actually have an annual decrease of $2.07. So our total estimated tax on a property assessed for that amount that we spoke of, your total bill likely is somewhere around $9,300 a year. I think that's probably right. I think that's what my tax bill somewhat is like. And that includes your school tax, where their tax rate is 2.034. Your residential county tax, which is 0.52, our municipal tax, which is 1.019, the library tax, which is 0.049. So that is approximately $9,300 a year. So this is just our general appropriations when we take a look at the budget. So our general operations is typically about 83% of our budget. We have statutory expenditures about 8%. Our capital improvements are less than, or about 1% of that. Our debt service is about 6%. We do keep a reserve for uncollectible taxes. That's if someone, for some reason, did not pay their taxes, we keep them in, a reserve. But we have been trending, I want to say somewhere 98% of taxes are being collected in the borough. So our total appropriations in our budget is $13,593,995.98. Our capital budget plan upcoming. We have a bunch of roads on the docket to be completed. I believe some of the work has already started on those roads. So Janice Drive neighborhood, River Street neighborhood, American Way, West End, Towel, Lakeview, and Walker. We have our Office on Aging senior bus. We approved that in our capital plan last year. They are still working on finding something that would be most appropriate for us. I think a lot of people here would be excited to see the next one. Yay! Ms. Charlesworth with the courtroom microphone and speaker system is on our docket for this year. And we are repurposing some unused capital that we have to build into our current budget to allow for the police department to purchase a car annually within their budget, as opposed to having to go to a capital plan or appropriate funds for that separately.
With a mayor's car.
So, anybody? Well, I can't. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah, okay.
A motion, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
A motion open to the public, budget questions only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, if anybody has any questions regarding the budget, please come forward.
Good evening, Chuck Hager, 65 Herman Drive. I noticed in the area of revenue, there are two revenue areas that went up quite substantially from 23 to 24. And I understand you budgeted these amounts because of what was actually realized in 23. I'm just wondering what's going on in reference to, first of all, the fees and permits. The budget last year was 380. We actually realized 435,000. Why did that go up?
Give me 1 second, we'll pull it up.
Chuck, if I have to imagine, it's probably likely to the fees that we've collected on the redevelopment, right? So those are the, oh, I'm sorry. I will let the boss do it. He knows that better.
So specifically, Mr. Hager, last year, the borough anticipated $160,000 in EMS fees, but we collected $302,000 in EMS fees last year. There was a change.
Oh, that was my next question.
Yeah, so the recommendation from the,
But I'm up.
oh, you're on fees and permits.
Right,
So fees and permits, that would be anything in regards to local fees, so not the construction fees or anything like that, that would be under a separate section. I'd have to pull the listing, but that's based off of what we collect.
And just, when something goes up in collections 20%, I'm just curious. That's quite a substantial,
I can pull the specifics, and then email them to you.
I appreciate that. And then my next question was on the EMS revenue, that went up almost 100% from the $160,000 that was.
We changed EMS billing providers, and because of that, it was a recommendation by the director. We've been realizing more fees, they've been collecting better at collection rates, so I would attribute it to that.
Thank you, Doug. On the appropriation end of it, Department of Law, the OE last year was 135,000. This year it's 250,000. And I take it that's the ongoing litigation expenses.
Some are covered by the insurance company, and some are based off of what we're seeing from last year's budgeting. We spent about $224,000 from last year's budget. The state will not allow you to go under that amount unless you have a reasonable explanation, so you have to go.
And then in appropriations, recreation, last year expended 18,000 in salaries and wages. It's budgeted for 30,000 this year.
So there's a split of one part-time employee that's fully dedicated there, and then half of an employee that oversees multiple departments, Department of Aging, Department of, from the 2021 ordinance, it's basically the Department of Community Affairs, so the Director of Community Affairs, part of her salary is there as well.
I'm sorry, can I jump in? I was under the impression that her budget came out of administration and not out of recreation.
It's not come out of insurance.
It does not? Okay.
And then the OE for recreation has tripled from 19,000 charge to 65,000 budgeted.
There was a request from the department head, the Director of Community Affairs, to have 70,000, and then after meeting, it was developed at 65,000.
The people can't hear you at home.
So what? So what is being added program-wise?
Predictable douchebag.
I would have to pull the the request from the director. I don't have that with me, but there was a request by the director to increase those to have more recreational activities next year, or this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich O'Brien, 11 Hudson Avenue. Good evening, everyone. I had a couple of questions. On sheet 9I, our grant income anticipated is down significantly from the prior year. We're not really listing much. Are we not seeking grants? Is there?
No, so, Mr. O'Brien, when it comes to introducing the municipal budget, you can only anticipate those items that you received the grant award. We have put in, there actually, since introduction, we have gotten a number of, items for the grant to be put in, one being, the CDBG grant. You cannot add, grant items until the budget is adopted. That's the reason why the state has a chapter 159, basically what a chapter 159 is, a resolution that would do a dedicated by rider to add an item to the budget. You can only add items to the grant section. So when you put in a grant, the state will ask you to provide the award, either letter or the check. If you don't have it, then you can't have it in the budget, and they won't
So-
allow you to adopt the budget.
Makes sense. So the last year and the year before when we did it incorrectly.
No, there was a few. Last year they didn't have any grants in there. The year before that there was maybe 3 or 4. It all depends on when you receive the grant.
So it's a matter of time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On sheet 17, there's a salary adjustment of 50,000. Was wondering what that was about.
So that was budgeted last year, and what it does is it anticipates for a retirement of an employee, so you would end up paying PTO time out of that item, because if you do not have something dedicated within the budget, you have to then take it out of the municipal
So
or
it's a-
departmental budget.
It's a leave accrual?
Yes.
Okay.
In the amendment that the council will, that will entertain this evening, it did decrease down to 27,000, but that is based off of a recommendation from the state because they want us to split out a debt service payment.
Okay, thank you. I saw the slide about capital projects, but I didn't see anything specific listed in sheets 48 through 40D.
So in the amendment, you will see some items to the water and sewer fund that was in our QAA or WQAA report to the state. However, we're not anticipating any new debt this year. We're going to repurpose debt that was already prior year approved. That's the reason why you don't see anything on there. So there is no new debt expected for this year, and that's what those slides are for.
But I noticed in the past, we would still list the projects and an estimate.
You can, and that's in future projects. I do not know what a future project would be. The administration concludes at the end of the year, and then you need to then put in a new amount. I can't predetermine what.
You're not
somebody might
anticipating
do.
what you don't know yet. Okay. And Mr. Hager talked about the 150% increase in our legal expenses, so I'll leave that alone. I happened to take a look at the last budget of the previous administration, Mayor Steelage, back in 2020. And essentially I noticed that the difference in miscellaneous revenue from 20 to 24 is $2.2 million, which essentially is the developer's contribution and the pilot payment, which the mayor spoke of a few minutes ago. So I guess my question is, looking at next year's budget, how are we gonna plug that gap if there's no longer a developer contribution coming?
Part of it was it, but so what you have, there's about an additional 500,000, give or take, that would happen when you collect the full pilot payment from the developer. That would then be built in. One of the items that I have discussed with council members is that since losing the Helmeta policing contract, my understanding from looking at how that trended, when you had the Helmeta contract, that covered a percentage, actually covered for 4 police officers to be added to the force, so 1 to each squad. In this budget, the past 2 years, you've kept those people on, even though you didn't have the revenue from Helmeta.
The 588K.
Yeah, so there's about, it would be about $490,000 to cover the lowest 4 members of the police department from a salary perspective.
not talking about the pilot payment, I meant the contribution, the $3.5 million they agreed to give us towards recreational purposes. We're running out of that money, correct?
Yes.
So part of keeping the budget flat this year, last year, and the year before, was built on that foundation.
I didn't create the last two budgets, I only did this one.
Okay, so this budget.
In this
Certainly
budget,
a part of it. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Ronco, can I just ask you to please put the sign away?
First Amendment.
I understand it's First Amendment.
There you go, that's it.
Good evening. Good evening. Ed Sealy, 88 Elm Street, Spotswood, New Jersey. Simple question. Has the state approved the budget yet?
so George Allen is our reviewer. There were two items that he asked for an amendment on. One was the NJEIT loan. We have a weird schedule. That's the reason why you had an emergency last year, the $59,000 to pay that debt service payment. It's always been funded on one line. They now want it to be separated out, a principal line and an interest line. When you change a line more than, I wanna say a percentage, clearly this went from 0 to 26,000. It's more than a percentage, which requires an amendment to the budget. That is explained in the amendment resolution. We were approved to move forward with doing the hearing this evening for the original budget, approved to move forward for the amendment to go forward, and then for adoption at our next meeting.
So there's no other things pending that may hold up the budget?
From the email that I got from him today is that we are clear, I mean, I can read it to you, but we are clear to move forward.
Just a direct question.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you may. You can proceed to pass the resolution to amend tonight. Thank you, Joel.
Any other questions? Yeah, any council members have any questions?
I do. If we were to decide to amend the budget between now and the vote, we have to go back to the state?
We would need to alert the state, yes. And that would trigger a complete new review. So we would have to then go back and whatever we decide to change, then they would have to do another review of the budget.
But if they've already reviewed it once, it would just be what we would be asking them to review?
No, they would do a complete review. That's a requirement for them. So that's usually, when you introduce your budget, that's why they have a statutory requirement for a month to go by before you have your adoption hearing. You typically need to let the state know within 2 weeks of introduction if you're going to change anything. And then in the last 2 weeks is usually whatever changes that the state requires you to do with your budget.
But we still have the option to do it. We would just have to put it under review again.
Yes, I mean, I would need to know probably within, looking at the holiday, and then looking at, I don't know, Juneteenth would be after. So looking at the holiday, this upcoming holiday, I would probably need to know sooner if you're looking to. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
I have a real concern about the pilot monies kind of filling in on the budget line. That's gonna run out, as Mr. O'Brien has stated. So in essence, unless something's really done, we're in the negative.
I would say that the 2% increase on the $1 million over the next couple of 30 years, the 2% increase is a pretty hefty amount of money, $200,000, right?
Correct.
So the concern and what we had to make up for over these past 2 budget years and utilize that funding was the loss. Because if we remember last year when we talked about the inside and outside, when we had a shared service with Palmetto that was paying $700,000, right, outside, we were able to be outside the cap on salary, on some of the salary in the budget. Unfortunately, when you don't have someone else paying for that any longer, and we brought that in, and it was this administration's decision not to, cut any positions or do anything, and I believe council would have agreed with us on that we really wanted to keep, our staffing in we've absorbed the cost of eliminating the Helmeta contract, which was bringing in a significant revenue and allowing us to put salaries outside the cap because it was someone else paying it. Does that make sense?
I understand completely,
Yeah.
but with the increase of fuel, with the increase of insurance, with the increase, and just go down the list, we are in the negative, and I understand it's gonna be a tough hole to fill, I respect that. On the other essence, with the 3.5, the one-time payment, where is that money? Is there an account? Do we have access to see that actual number? And following up on that, with the 3.5, what is it gonna be used, or was it gonna be used for?
So that revenue payment came in last year.
We received the payment.
We received a
Yes.
payment last year, we did hold it. We did use to balance some of our budget last year again. We made the decision that utilizing that funding was more important because there was so much discussion and talk about the recreational facility that we were gonna use for it. We made the decision to flatten our taxes, to keep the taxes flat, to give it back to the residents, to say, this is something that we're gonna use. Yes, we appreciate the help, we appreciate the money, but that has essentially, we've been able to utilize that funding in order to, again, everything's skyrocketing. And the cost, and in the administration's opinion, it's more important, and I think we've heard it many times, it's more important for us to really take care of our taxpayers and keep our costs as tight as we possibly can. So we have used that funding to ensure that it is not affecting our taxpayers, and we don't have to utilize, additional funding. And, again, it's the administration's job, we brought in, the lease agreement payments, we haven't had that before, right? And so as they were starting to trickle in, but this is the first, I think, budget year that we are recognizing that amount, full amount, because again, we can't recognize revenue that we didn't have. Again, EMS has done a very good job of us being able to bill, for what we were not, or had not been billing for prior, but, it was the administration's decision really to think about what was best for the community and the taxpayers in keeping their taxes as low as we can, knowing that other entities that fall into our tax bill do go up. So that's the truth of it.
I understand, and it's almost gone, and I go back to, it's gonna be tough, but I respect that, and thank you for all your hard work and focus on that. Would we be able to get a quarterly report on that account at all, of what's left, or how much is left, or any such as, just asking?
It says 0 after this, is it not? 23 was like 1.9 million, 24 will
That's it.
be
So,
1.5.
go back to my first statement, I understand, thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, it just jumps in my head. I really don't like making this meeting longer. Ed Sealy, 88 Elm Street, Spotswood, New Jersey. Just one question, just a scenario. If 85 Main Street folds up, files suit, decides they can't do it, what happens then? I mean, it's not guaranteed money if they decide to go bankrupt. I doubt that would happen, but I'm just saying it's a scenario.
The pilot is a 30-year pilot.
So they can't get out of the pilot?
They can't appeal it.
You can't appeal it.
You can't appeal a pilot. You can appeal the land tax, you cannot appeal the pilot. The pilot is locked in for 30 years.
Really? So if you file bankruptcy, you gotta pay it. I'm just saying,
It's not something that we deal with as bankruptcy, but under state law, a 30-year pilot must be paid, it cannot be appealed. They can appeal their land tax.
I understand this is a burning concern, and it's just, we all like to believe that nothing's going to go wrong, but if it does, it's rare.
Well, that's why you should build up your fund balance, so that's why this year the fund balance was built up by an additional 200,000 to leave, and you kept only using 500,000 within the fund balance. Prior years, you were using more, the last 2 years, you kept it flat at 500,000. You don't have appropriation reserves over expenditures within this year's budget. There was one item that was found in the audit from the 2022 budget that had to be budgeted within this year. $49,000 of an emergency, you will not, you're not anticipating any emergencies. So that would be something, so you can look at several items and I can give a breakdown to council for future years. Typically, I do a 2-year look ahead, if I'm asked, but I've never been asked to do that here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion to close the public portion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye. At this time, we have 2 ordinances for second reading. Jenny?
Ordinance 2024-4, an ordinance amending and supplementing Part 2 General Legislation / Land Development, Chapter 120, Land Development, Article 500, Stormwater Control, Repair and Zone, and Steep Slopes to incorporate rules preventing stored salt and other solid de-icing materials from being exposed to stormwater in the Borough of Spotswood, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey. Ordinance 2024-5, an ordinance amending and supplementing Part 2 General Legislation / Land Development, Chapter 120, Land Development, Article 500, Stormwater Control, Repair and Zones, and Steep Slopes to incorporate rules to address tree removal and replacement. We also have 3 ordinances on on first reading. Public hearing set for Monday, June 17th, 2024. Ordinance 2024-6, an ordinance amending and supplementing the salary ordinance of the Borough of Spotswood entitled an amendment to the ordinance fixing and establishing salaries and wages of certain non-bargaining unit employees of the Borough of Spotswood, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey. 2024-7, ordinance of the Borough of Spotswood, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, establishing a policy for property tax exemption on dwelling house of 100% totally disabled veteran or surviving spouse. Ordinance 2024-8, an ordinance of the Borough of Spotswood, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the borough clerk to place upon the November 5th, 2024 general election ballot a question asking voters whether or not they wish to establish a charter commission to study and possibly recommend changes to the borough's form of government. We also have resolutions under consent agenda, resolutions 2024-74 through 2024-79. 2024-74, resolution authorizing the execution of an amended interlocal agreement with the Township of South Brunswick to provide the lease of mobile data computer units and InfoCop licenses. 2024-75, a resolution authorizing a refund of $1,939.18 to Ken Gorman for his duplicate reimbursement of overpayment of wages. 2024-76, a resolution authorizing a tax refund. 2024-77, resolution authorizing the execution of an amended contract with the East Brunswick Animal Hospital. 2024-78, resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with the Borough of Spotswood's school crossing guards, including the changes which have been negotiated and agreed upon for the years January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2027, and 2024-79 payment of bills. We will also.
I'd like to make a motion. Oh, you gonna wait? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
We also have the 2024 municipal budget hearing amendment and not adoption. And that's 2024-80, resolution amending the 2024 budget of the Borough of Spotswood, County of Middlesex.
So, Mr. Council President, the change to the East Brunswick Animal Hospital was due to, I guess, a miscommunication by then, even though we had an email stating the numbers. So it's a $10 increase for both stay and neutering, and they will not microchip, they will only ear chip. So from what I reported at the last meeting, it's a $10 increase. I think it's $110 now for male cats and $160 for female cats. That was a requirement that they wouldn't sign the contract until we added the $10 increase. And then they wanted the clarification that the ear tipping is all they do. hope that once we then approve this, that they'll finally sign, but it's been kind of difficult to do.
Council President, can I use the caucus to talk on a couple items?
Sure.
Okay, so, just to get my reasoning out of the way in the caucus, we have an ordinance tonight, 2024-6, is a salary ordinance, and I need to follow up with a couple people on here. I requested several changes weeks ago. Brandon, thank you for answering your component of it, and I know some colleagues also have concerns that were only presented over the weekend that took priority over mine, so let's all table them together, perhaps in the regular. And then an item from the resolutions list is the payment of bills. I was away this weekend, which you'll hear about later in the night. And then today my sister got back from her honeymoon and there were gifts and I had to give some attention to that. So I couldn't get in to look at the bills. So as I'm unprepared for that, I'm wondering if a similar courtesy is gonna be extended to me to table it or if I should abstain.
People get bills?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't wait 2 months to pay bills. That
Yeah,
would be
can't
very,
pay
very
those
difficult.
bills.
Okay, I was just double checking that. Yep, that's fine. I'm gonna have to abstain. Because I know a resident or two likes us to look at each bill, and I didn't get to do that this weekend. So.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to open to the public to speak about anything that is on the list here regarding the ordinances or the resolutions.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public comment portion of the Spotswood Borough Council meeting is to allow the public to bring to council's attention their concerns or comments in accordance with NJSA 10-4-12A, as well as Spotswood Borough Ordinances 2-18 and 2-19, except upon consent of the council president. Each person addressing the council in the case of a resolution shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes, and in the case of an ordinance shall limit their remarks to 5 minutes total for the meeting. No person shall direct any remarks or questions to any specific council member except by permission of the council president. Any council member through the council president may choose to answer a question, but they are not obligated to do so. All persons wishing to address the council shall do so from the podium or other location specified by the council president. Each person addressing the council must identify themselves by name and address. If said person is representing a business or organization, they shall further state whether their comments are their personal view or those of the group they represent. Thank you.
Diane Charles, Route 29 Old Stage Road. As usual, I have some questions on the bill list. On the second page, down towards the bottom, there's RFP Solutions, professional services rendered. What did they do for us?
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
What number is that?
I'm sorry, 2400614. It's towards the bottom. It's for $8,601, I think. $8,661. You just got new glasses too, God.
I just have to lock them in.
Sure.
They kicked me out when I walked down.
Nobody knows what they did for us?
I'm
working on
checking
it.
right now.
Oh, okay.
When you go from upstairs to downstairs, we lose it.
You going with future?
Okay, how about another one while we're waiting?
What you got?
On page 3, again towards the bottom, 2400652, statewide insurance fund, a deductible for claim number whatever, for 25,000 plus. Who is that for?
It was a request for deductible for the Johnson.
For the Johnson lawsuit.
For Brittany? Yes. Okay. All right, so just RFP guy.
This is a buildings and ground. Oh, you beat me to it. It is an emergency install of two Cat6 cables, the municipal building and trailer extending data, one cable. Switchboard. Tim, do you have any other information on it?
It was for when they had the trailer out there to bring phones and data out for the temporary police communications.
So we never paid it.
Yeah.
So it was an old bill from when they had the trailer after the flood.
Gotcha.
There's not been paid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, because the invoice date was 9/13/22.
Wow. Holy man.
That's why I didn't know about it. Sorry, Mr. Charles.
Good evening, everyone. Ken Ritchie, Latoy Drive.
Good evening.
There's two places that Bruno Associates shows up. One for $12.65, and the other one's for $600 something, I believe. What are they for?
They are a grant administrator. They administer the grant programs, so they apply for various grants for the town.
Okay, thank you.
Can I jump on that for a sec?
Sure.
Can you tell me how many grants that Bruno Associates has recommended that we apply for up until this point?
That we've gotten.
Off the top of my head, I don't, but I can pull that for you. I know I gave
I think they do a report in each,
yeah,
an
I
invoice.
provided it to you.
I like it, I didn't have time to look at it.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it either, so I don't know if it's on the invoice, but I would like to have a report as to how many grants Bruno is actually recommending that we apply for and whether we have or have not done so.
They send us every grant.
Right. Right, that's what we pay them for.
Off the
You're
top-
on the list.
Yeah, off the top of my head, the two that we most recently finished was the AFG grants that both the fire and EMS put in for.
Okay,
I know that was two items that we were working on for the last several months. So
and that came from Bruno.
I would assume, yes, they provided the recommendation, I sent it out to the department heads, and then the department heads came back with their recommendations, and then they went forward with what they were looking to acquire. The PO should probably tell you exactly what the specifics was, because I only have in here, professional services rendered for AFG.
Okay, I have it, thank you.
Mr. Ritchie.
Top of the second page, ASCAP. That's typically music licensing fees. Why would we be paying that?
So I did inquire to this. This is now probably 3 years worth of fees that have built up. It landed on my desk from finance saying, what is this? I inquired to the company. Anytime that you have the tree lighting, you have the any type of recorded messaging, you have to pay for a licensing of those musics to be played at your municipal building. You also need to pay for any on-hold music or things like that. So I got a full explanation, and we have utilized the license in order to play music at our events, so we have to pay for that.
Okay, thank you. New York County DA.
So this is an item that was approved last August. I don't know why it didn't happen until now. We were we double billed for the same service when we're using one of our officers who was on loan to the DEA. They then sent back the check, paying us. We deposited it, and then finance said we didn't receive the check. They sent us another check, we deposited it, so then we had a double payment. This was approved in the August meeting to pay them back. I don't know why it hasn't made it until now that the check never paid, but that is what went out to them as per that resolution last year.
And this covers overtime with the officers or time?
It was a double payment. Yeah, so
When the officers are on loan to the department,
Yes.
covers part of their expenses?
yes.
And then finally, if my math is correct, I have $100,519 in legal fees on the bill this month, excluding planning and zoning, and bond council. $100,519. 1 month. How about a breakdown on some of this?
I believe there's multiple ones in there, but I would have to go back into the system and then provide the breakdown.
Well, the first ones would be borough council. Are these for this year or last year?
These are this year's payments.
This year? Matthew Sage for 2,000.
He is the public defender.
Okay, so we're down to 98,000. Raynon Coglin,
That is labor council.
is that because of lawsuits that are going on? Is that what they're looking into, or are they doing labor, any labor attorney?
They're doing labor matters.
They're doing labor matters right now. Okay.
Anything that's been handled by a lawsuit was then turned over to the insurance company. Insurance company assigns the attorney for that.
Bob Smith and Associates,
He is the prosecutor.
okay. You know, if there's a way for you guys to put in something on these that explains it, you know, Robert Smith and Associates, municipal prosecutor, you know, and UNPROS, something that would kind of explain it where people could look at it and go, oh, okay. That would probably be a good thing to do.
That's why I'm doing it.
On the, is the salary ordinance tabled, or is it gonna continue on tonight?
To be determined.
So looking at the salary ordinances, everything in red, is that where all the changes lie?
No, that is the changes that cause the reintroduction.
Only the ones in red?
Yes. So, I provided council, there was, actually, Councilman Ritchie, you were on council at the time, ordinance 2021-11, which restructured the Department of Community Services. This ordinance was never codified into the municipal code book, so I had no clue that it was ever passed. Obviously, I wasn't here in 2021. It reshaped department titles, and I believe that the question came up at the last meeting about various directors. Well, in one department, you can't have various directors. You have to have one director and then people underneath that person. And then people were asking questions, well, why is somebody listed as a coordinator, but they're listed in the salary ordinance as a director? This was all mandated to be changed by the passing of ordinance 2021-11, but it never made it to the salary ordinance. So after reviewing that with the clerk and getting that, that's when I sent an email explaining it to council, saying this I was unaware of, and this is my recommended changes, and that you should table the first reading of the salary ordinance and move forward with a restructure of the salary ordinance to match ordinances that are already on the books and should have been codified.
Okay, so no one's lost a position where we've gone from the director of recreation to now part-time coordinator. It's the same job, just retitled.
It's a recreation coordinator, not a director of recreation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Holly Ronco, Mount Alfred. The $25,000 payment from the GIF, the deductible, does that mean that we settled the Johnson lawsuit?
I can't speak to that, though.
No, it's not settled. It's a deductible. For one lawsuit. We have currently, what, 13? Thank you.
Who's getting up there first?
It's a race.
Ed Celia, Richmond, Spotswood, New Jersey. Just going back to Mr. Walker's question about the claim of the settlement. You pay a settlement, doesn't that mean it's closed?
It's not a settlement, it's a deductible.
It's a deductible payment.
Deductible for your share of the settlement.
No,
No,
there's no settlement.
your
Okay.
fees.
So
You know something I don't know?
Sometimes.
Time fucking corrupt.
Okay, we'll put that aside for a second. I have a bigger concern. I need you to explain to me this ordinance with the 100% disability for vets, what's going on with that. As a veteran myself, as a guy who's been exposed to light water, as a naval firefighter, what's the problem? Why are we establishing a policy?
So, Mr. Sealy, we just actually got an explanation about how this works tonight. So I believe we're going to make a motion to table it so that we can review it a little bit further prior to a vote.
Appreciate that, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Chuck Hager, 65 Herman Drive. Question on resolution 2024-78. When I went online, I saw the resolution itself. I didn't see a copy of the contract or the changes that were occurring in the contract, and I'm just wondering, what were the changes in the contract?
You're talking about the animal hospital?
No.
Was it crossing guards?
The crossing guards contract.
We can start with their salary increases in their contract.
I gathered
I figured
that
you
would be
assumed
there,
that.
yes. You had the percent increase, salary. What was that?
There was a request from the crossing guards stating that their salaries were not in conformance with surrounding towns. You cannot use surrounding towns because it's comparing apples to oranges based on what your tax base would be. But the agreed upon item would be a 75-cent increase in the first year plus a 3% on top of that, so it's an adjustment year, and then a 3% increase in year 2, year 3, and year 4. There is an increase to their clothing allowance went from $525 up to $550. There was discrepancies within one section said if they go to a school event that it's not a mandatory 2 hours, but then in another item, if the chief orders them to go to court or something along those lines, that is a mandatory 2 hours. So we set everything other than them being out on the street and being a crossing guard to be a mandatory 2 hours. And then some cleanup items, those are the main highlight to the changes.
Thank you.
I have another question if the public is done. We are tearing these ordinances apart, I'm sorry. Ordinance 2024-8, for the folks at home or in the crowd. If council authorizes this, there will be additional seats for election in November, where 5 people will study if we change the form of government in Spotswood, which is well and fine. However, my concern is, why don't we have the residents get the signatures? The 20% of the voting population, which is very doable and is permitted by law.
I thought we were doing that, we're not doing that.
That if we pass on second reading, it will be on the ballot and the signatures are not needed.
For them to run.
For the question to be on the ballot to begin with. They need to get, the individuals need to get their own signatures
Right,
later in the summer if council authorizes it.
right. But you're asking, it's 10%, it's not 20.
It's 20.
It's 20? I was under the impression it was 10. Is it 20? So I had asked to see that at the last meeting, that I would be interested in seeing a 20% as well.
The signatures?
I did.
Because it is a big deal. You know what I mean? And people need to get their steps in. You got the parade, you got 4th of July, that you could be gathering these signatures. That's my thought.
One of the things, if the council authorizes this ordinance to go through, it puts the question up on the ballot for everyone. It does relieve us of trying to get 20% of the signatures, which I believe is about 240 signatures, which really won't take long at all. But it shows that the council is behind looking into this to see if we can't do something better than we have now. The people that run for election, or the people that will look to become part of this committee, minimum of 5 people have to run, and my understanding, Jenny might be able to tell me if I'm wrong, it's gonna be basically the same thing as when you run for another seat in town. You have to get petitions, you have to get signatures. There is a formula for how many signatures are required for the people that are gonna run. I just don't recall what that formula is right now, whether it's 10 votes, 50 votes, or 50 signatures. But any of the 5 or more people can run. In the end, when you vote for this, you can vote for it, against it, or not vote for it at all. But you would ask, even if you didn't vote for this, you would still ask for them to select 5 people on the list. So personally, I believe the council should back this. I think it's a good thing to do, to look at it. Who's to say that anything's gonna change?
Right.
But it's a review, it's an open discussion, it's held publicly, and I don't see where any of this would be a detriment to anyone. My 2 cents.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you, sorry. I'd like to go back to Bruno Associates. So I'm looking at these 2 purchase orders, and in each purchase order, Bruno Associates has suggested between 22 and 24 grants. On the average, how many do you tend to follow up with? So we're paying Bruno Associates to suggest approximately 20 to 30 grants each time we pay them. Out of those 20 to 30 suggestions, how many does administration actually follow through and say, yes, we want to apply for these?
Well, it also depends, so they do make recommendations on the senior grants. We don't go through Bruno and Associates, we do it on our own. Why pay them to do something if our staff is already willing to do it?
Right, Miriam is great when it comes to
So,
grants, I'm talking about Bruno.
And then when they recommended 3 or 4 DOT grants, those DOT grants are then similarly recommended by the engineer. I would have to go through the item, but it's typically then passed on to the department head, because most of the grants are specific to a department, and then if the department head wishes to put in for it, then they put in for it. If they don't put in for it, then they don't. If it comes to like an administrative item, so one was the lantern fly, so then I put together that, because there's no other department to then put in for that. Again, off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer, because I don't have paperwork in front of me of all the different items that they've done.
And some of the grants, Councilwoman, that they do send to us, and Councilman Lesko sees it as well, they don't apply to us. They do send us some things that don't necessarily apply to
We
our-
just got a grant to help fund for an SRO in schools. We don't provide an SRO in schools.
Okay, and some of these grants that are recommended are listed twice. So they're listed on one purchase order for one bill, and then they're listed again on another purchase order for another bill. So they're billing us twice for their recommendations?
And I don't have a piece of paper in front of me, and if you wanna send that to me, but that's an item I
could
don't
be,
believe.
I might be reading it wrong, but I'm looking at this purchase order for 605, and I'm looking at this purchase order for 1,200, and the same grants are listed on both pages as recommended, which is basically what we pay them for, correct? Them to
Well, there-
find those grants
Well, there
for
would
us?
be, you're not paying them to find the grant, they're also working on the
They're working on-
application with the department head.
Okay.
So they gather the information, so like with the AFG grant, the fire chief had to give, calls for service, various other items, that's then compiled in the narrative, and those things are done by the actual grant coordinator at Bruno instead of the police, or the fire chief being asked to do it.
You need to look at these, because these are almost exactly, can you look at these?
I was gonna give you my February report so we can save some paper, but yeah.
Can
Let's distribute
we-
these.
Yeah, I would just ask you to look at those again, because both purchase orders have the same list of grants. They're actually like the same grant report, so I'm just curious as to where the difference would be. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further review, that's what you're saying, hold the bill now, we'll put it back.
I just wasn't,
After.
I'm not even voting.
That makes sense.
I'm not even voting, I'm complicating it on the
No,
bills.
I don't think you're complicating it at all, I think you're making a point.
Yeah, I would have to sit down and look at this further. I would probably vote for the bill list and abstain from the Bruno bills, is what I'm thinking about doing at this point. for Bruno Associates.
If we don't pay them this month, what's gonna happen?
I don't believe you get a penalty, but.
Upon review, right, that's a fair, right?
Is that fine?
Okay, I'm gonna suggest we pull the Bruno list, that's my suggestion, because to give time, ample, fair time to review a finding. And if there is, it sounds to me that there are two things going on here. One, we need to find some future cuts, right, and concerns here, and there's a concern. So, that's one. And two, you know, are we getting enough from the grants as we're paying this company, or is it a wash, which do we really need this company besides coordination? That's all I'm saying, publicly, so.
I don't pick the company, that's
No, I
decided by
understand.
council and then
Having a
I have to.
So we'll hold the bill
I'm
and,
gonna make a motion to pull two purchase orders off of the bill resolution at this time, 24-00489 and 24-00631, which are the two Bruno Associate bills. So I'm making a motion to pull those two bills off the bill list.
When that time comes, I'll second.
I just did
There we
it.
go. I second.
Good time to
Oh, we need to close the public first. Make a motion to close to public.
Second.
Somebody's on this.
iPhone 1, can you please unmute?
There we go. Hi, guys, it's Chief Draco from the fire department. I just wanted to shed some light on you guys to help Brandon out here with regards to Bruno. So we dealt with them for the AFG. The grant that we applied for is somewhere in the ballpark of $180,000, $200,000 if we're awarded it. It has, I forget the actual percentage that comes out of it and all as far as a town share. But the grant process for the AFG is extremely competitive and extremely lengthy and a crazy process to go through and all to apply for it. There's a lot of information, a lot of structure. The forms are very particular to even be competitive towards it. So I would say if what I'm assuming from what's there, I would assume that the process or the bills aren't just for grant finding. I can tell you that I had to work with this individual for multiple hours across the time, so I would assume it was for services rendered. And basically, aside from information that we have to provide them, they completely handle filling out and processing the grant request through through FEMA. And like I said, it's extremely complicated. It would be extremely hard for myself or anybody who doesn't do this as a full-time thing to apply for. And like I said, as far as what it goes, us on our equipment side, we're talking, we have multiple capital issues to take care of in the town in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So grant services are something that is extremely worth it.
thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Osmond Dickus. I'm a resident in town. I'm also a police officer and a member of the 225. I'm here to speak on my own today. I've been thinking this whole time of what I'm going to say, and there's just so much.
I just wanted to make sure that this is this about either the ordinances or the resolutions? Otherwise, we'll open to the public for everything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought that this was.
Yeah.
Public.
Just like 10 minutes.
In the regular meeting, which will be in a few minutes.
Oh, my apologies.
No problem.
My apologies.
Thank you. Okay, make a motion to close to the public.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, this meeting was called for Monday, May 20th, 2024, at 7:30 PM at Borough Hall located at 77 Summit Hill Road, Spotswood, New Jersey, pursuant to the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-8B. The public may choose to attend this meeting electronically via Google Meet. This meeting was advertised on the Spotswood website and in the Home News Tribune.
Councilman Kramer?
Here.
Councilman Lesko?
Here.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Here.
Councilman Zaborni?
Here.
Council President Legakis?
Here.
Mayor Palmer?
Here.
This time I ask everybody to please rise and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two ordinances for second reading.
I will take a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-4.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-4.
Second.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
And Council President Legakis?
Yes.
I will take a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-5 on second reading.
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-5.
Seconded.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
Council President Legakis?
Yes.
Next we have, I'll take a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-6 on first reading.
Not adopt, but
Oh, introduce, I'm sorry. I said adopt, introduce.
I'd like to make a motion to table ordinance 24-6.
Second.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
And Council President Legakis?
Yes.
Next, I will take a motion to, introduce ordinance 2024-7 on first reading. Public hearing set for for June 17th.
I'd like to make a motion to table 2024-7.
Second.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
Council President Legakis?
Yes.
Next, I will take a motion to introduce ordinance 2024-8 on first reading. Public hearing set for June 17th, 2024.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 24-8 on first reading.
Seconded.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes, only for the reason to get discussion on it next month, where I will not be going for it then. So yes, tonight to advance.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
Council President Legakis?
Yes.
Next, I will, excuse me, take a motion to adopt resolutions 2024-74 through 2024-79.
Make a motion to adopt 2024-74 through 2024-79.
Seconded.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes, please mark me as an abstention for 79 in the bills.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes, but on the payment of bills on the, and forgive me on the numbers for what we just discussed.
Bruno?
Bruno, And let me reason in just further explanation and discovery, if I may use that term, not for any personal reason, just, and I don't know the number of their, I apologize.
So you want to abstain from those?
We pulled them already, didn't
I didn't, no, we didn't vote on it. I never went through. After listening to the chief, I'm fine for it.
So excuse me, you're fine?
After hearing from the chief, I'm good for this month.
Okay, I was just throwing support, so I'll say
Yeah,
yes
yeah.
to everything. Thank you.
And Council President Legakis.
Yes.
Next, I will take a motion, to, adopt resolution 2024-80, which is the resolution amending the 2024 budget of the Borough of Spotswood County and Middlesex.
Make a motion to pass 2024-80.
Second.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Lesko?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwartz?
Yes.
Councilman Zaborni?
Yes.
And Council President Legakis.
Yes.
So specifically, that now calls for a hearing on the amendment at our next meeting, on the 17th, so the budget is not adopted this year.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, we have 3 proclamations for tonight. The first one is a proclamation celebrating the 55th Annual Municipal Clerks Week. Councilman Zaborni.
Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now therefore, the Borough of Spotswood Council, on behalf of the mayor and all the citizens of Spotswood, do recognize the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2024 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our acting municipal clerk, Jenny Service, and to all professional municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent.
Okay, next we have a proclamation celebrating National Police Week.
Whereas National Police Week in America was created to honor and recognize the sacrifice and contributions made by police officers in communities both large and small. And whereas the National Police Week, held every year in May, was created in 1962 through a proclamation issued by then President John F. Kennedy. And whereas our community will always appreciate and commend the risk officers take every day to ensure our community's laws are properly enforced and that public safety is ensured. And whereas now more than ever, the community also appreciates and encourages the community involvement facilitated by our police officers to both better serve and instill mutual trust, camaraderie, and positive relationship among our residents of the Borough of Spotswood. And whereas police engage with and serve the public in the most varied and wide-ranging manner, and their efforts do not go unnoticed. And whereas the Borough of Spotswood honors the valor, service, and dedication of all police officers, and publicly salutes the service of each and every one of our Spotswood police officers. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Borough of Spotswood Council, on behalf of the mayor and all of the citizens of Spotswood, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week does hereby proclaim the week, put in there twice, of May 12th through May 18th, 2024 as National Police Week in the Borough of Spotswood, and encourages all residents to join the borough in the recognition of the services, sacrifices, and the efforts of the Spotswood Police Department makes to best serve the community. And I salute you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have one more proclamation celebrating the 50th anniversary of EMS Week. And I will ask Councilwoman Schwartz to please read this.
Whereas in 1974, President Gerald Ford authorized Emergency Medical Services Week to celebrate EMS, its practitioners, and the important work they do in responding to medical emergencies. At the time, EMS was a fledgling profession, and EMS practitioners were only beginning to be recognized as a critical component of emergency medicine and the public health safety net. And whereas emergency medical services are vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of the emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it resolved that the Borough of Spotswood Council, on behalf of the mayor and all of the citizens of Spotswood, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Services Week, and extend appreciation to all of the borough emergency medical technicians, together with EMS Director Doug Service, for their conscientious emergency medical services to the residents of the borough of Spotswood and mutual aid to residents of our neighboring towns.
Thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask each council member if they have any reports. We'll start with Councilwoman Schwartz.
Good evening, everybody. The library board has decided to change their meeting dates from the third Thursday of each month to the second Thursday of each month. The meetings for the rest of the year will be as follows: June 13th, July 11th, August 8th, September 12th, October 10th, November 14th, and December 12th, all starting at 7 p.m. The new circulation desk is installed and it is beautiful, so if you haven't seen it, please stop by the library and check it out. It's getting a ton of compliments. And I don't even know how to go about this, but the LMXAC Consortia is getting a new ILS and a catalog, which will impact services consortia-wide until June 13th. So basically what this means is from June 4th to June 13th, the only thing that the libraries will be able to do is check items out, and all delivery will be halted. And that also means checking out in between different libraries will also be halted while they redo their system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good, you're shaking your head.
Well,
I'm still trying to process all of that. So that is our library. The following is happening with our recreation department right now. The fishing derby is set for Saturday, June 1st with snacks and awards for those great catches. The car show is set for Saturday, June 15th with a DJ and a food truck. And Spark in the Park is scheduled for Friday, July 5th from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Councilman Kramer?
So I really don't have much to talk about when it comes to our township engineers, because it's basically the same thing for the last several months. But what I do have to talk about is my daughter was involved in a motor vehicle accident on Saturday. And I wanted to thank our PD, our fire department, and our EMS, because they do this every single day and they don't get thanked for it. Well, let me tell you, I appreciate all of them for taking care of my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you. She okay?
She okay?
Cliffhanger.
Just want to make sure. Councilman Lesko?
Hi, everybody. I have two items. One on teaching.
About the Memorial Day parade.
So I went to Washington DC over the weekend, and I did something similar when I was there like 18 months ago. I visited the Vietnam War Memorial Wall. This time, I was able to etch the 4 names of our fallen from Spotswood. That was Gary R. Buttonbaum, Otto W. Bauman Jr., James B. Heffron, and Dennis Crane. So I thought that was pretty neat. It was very busy that day. I did drive all that way in the rain down to DC just for East Brunswick to have a replica memorial wall coming into town, which many of you probably read today over the weekend. It is an 80% replica of the DC wall, which is still very massive. So kudos to East Brunswick for that. And just the other item, we're getting into the busy season. I hope to see everybody around town. Congrats to all graduates, whether high school, college, or continuing their education. And I've grown to like being up here during this time of year and the warm weather. And I hope to see you all in a week or two.
And, just to let you know, if you wanna see the wall come in, it's coming in, if you haven't seen, I know, a couple people have shared, it's coming in Wednesday morning, is that correct? Up Summerhill,
Yeah,
yes?
from the mall, and it's doing a route to
Yep.
near Dunn's Corner.
It's passing around Facebook, so take a look around, I know it's on there, I saw it today.
Thank you. Councilman Woody?
A lot of good things happening over at the high school and all the Spotswood schools. So the next meeting will be tomorrow night for Spotswood Board of Education over at the Media Center in the high school, 7 p.m. start. This Thursday is prom, high school junior senior prom will be this Thursday. Senior awards June 6th, graduation is June 20th, along with all the other schools for that same week. So they're having an exciting season, as you can imagine, over there. Culture and Heritage will be meeting again this Thursday. It's coming Thursday over at the VFW on Daniel Road at 7 p.m. And as I always state, take a look at the shop at St. Peter's. Check them out for good deals, always benefiting many programs and many people in need throughout our communities as well. And happy spring, everybody, and proud to serve.
Thank you. Mayor Palmer?
I had the budget presentation on.
Thank you. I just want to make one announcement. We were able to meet earlier today about the Memorial Day services and parade on Monday. Excuse me. I believe, Tim, can we post the schedule on the website at some point? So the Memorial Day services will kick off around 7:45 a.m. And go up until the parade kicks off at 1 o'clock. So hopefully everybody will be able to make it out there. We're hoping for a beautiful day. I think we talked about it and we planned on having a nice day, so we hope to see everybody out there. Thank you. Okay, at this time I'd like to make a motion to open to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. At this time you can come up and speak about anything that you want to speak about.
My name's Osmond Davis, I'm a police officer and a resident of town. I'd like to apologize for my premature, obviously it's my first time speaking in front of everyone, so I'm a little bit nervous. Been thinking about what to say this whole time, and even though I bought myself some time, I still didn't think about what to say. But I think there's some things that you guys need to hear on my own behalf, on the other side of things. I was made aware of this spectacle, I guess, 2 days ago. It wasn't dispersed to our membership. It wasn't voted by us. I don't know if that was intended to or not, but I'm getting sick and tired of everything that's going on here. I'm tired of the billboards, I'm tired of the lawsuits, I'm tired of news interviews, all of it. When I saw Mr. Scrivanic's name up there, I got a little annoyed. I don't care what anyone says, he's not an evil guy. When a baby died in my arms, less than half the membership reached out to me to make sure I was okay. And even fewer than that continued to keep up with me to see if I was okay. John Skrvanek was one outside of that membership that continued to keep in touch with me to see if I was okay. So he's a good man. Ever since the recent departure of 3 of our members, it's been like a breath of fresh air around here. Big time. Some of us are getting along with people that we never thought we'd get along with. And it's kind of hard to say. When I stepped down as PBA president, one of my executive members even mentioned how they were afraid of certain people retaliating against them. Shortly after I stepped down, that started to happen. I can't talk about the disciplinary matters that have been dished out, but it's pretty ridiculous. A lot of cops will tell you, they can't get you on the road, they'll get you inside. Your boots are untied, your uniform looks like crap, they'll get you there. So I got written up twice. The response I got from my own union was, well, you're kind of on your own, you can grieve it on your own. But if you do, you're gonna have a bigger bullseye on your back. These are some of the things that we deal with. So rather than sit and do nothing, I felt it was necessary to tell you guys what's going on. There's a lot of people that aren't speaking up. There's a lot of people that think that they just have to continue and go with the grain. Because if you don't go with the grain, you end up like me. I don't know what's gonna happen to me in the future. I don't know what's gonna happen to me tomorrow after this. I just really don't care anymore. I wanna come in and do my job and to serve the public to the best of my ability. I'm tired of the political agendas. I'm tired of the lawsuits. I just wanna work. The public deserves better. They deserve better than being disciplined for criticizing a $20,000 key box. $20,000 rather than using those funds to get things like ballistic helmets, which kind of just fell right under the rug. So, I don't really have much more to say. Again, I apologize for my premature coming up here, but I hope things get better.
Nothing to apologize for, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Raymond Hayduka. I'm the Chief of Police in South Brunswick Township. I'm also the Deputy Manager. Part of my duties, I'm the Legal Aid and Arbitration Committee for the New Jersey State Chiefs. I am here in that capacity representing the State Chiefs and the Middlesex County Chiefs on behalf of Chief Corpusero. Many of my colleagues are obviously here in attendance because they're very concerned about what is going on and what is taking place with him. I've been a police officer for 36 years and 18 years as a chief of police. And I can tell you, I have never seen a mess like this in my life. Part of what else I do, I'm a police practices expert. I give expert testimony. A lot of things I do deal with is internal affairs. And I'm a hearing officer. And I'm gonna get into some of that, but I want to point some of these things out to the council, to the governing body right now, because only you can do something at this point. There's some legal facts regarding this situation. What our association clearly believes is the unlawful suspension of Chief Corpusero. The Middlesex County prosecutor did not undertake or handle this disciplinary investigation, or even investigate some of the charges lodged as required by law and the New Jersey Attorney General guidelines on internal affairs policies and procedures. He just disciplined. All right, some of the things he was clear of. The prosecutor's office has already looked into and exonerated Chief Corpusero on many of the charges lodged. The suspension, it's just obvious, it's political, it's retaliatory, rather than what is statutorily required by law. Straight out, the mayor and Mr. Umba have it out for Chief Corpusero. They have it out for Captain Mayo, and I really don't know much about Officer Sasso, but I suspect that's the same. Most of these charges were lodged in violation of the 45-day rule, which also clearly applies to this matter. Right? The 45-day rule is simple. When you have enough information to charge somebody, you must do so. You can't wait, you can't punt it, you can't have extended bureaucratic delays. Right? I looked at the charges. They're not worth the paper they're written on. Whoever wrote those charges, get your money back. That's how bad they are. Every police officer in New Jersey, including the chief of police, has certain rights. All right? We're entitled to due process. We're not just subject to the discipline at the whim of a mayor or a business administrator. I'm gonna give you a briefing on a statute, NJSA 4814-147. You might wanna look that up. It says, and given in synopsis, except otherwise provided by law, no permanent member or officer, this is including the chief, I answered that, of the police department shall be removed from his office, employment, or position for political reasons, or for any cause, regulations established by government or the police department enforced, nor shall such member be suspended, removed, fined, or reduced from rank in office or position therein except for just cause. Right? There's a lot of legal rigmarole, but I'm going to give you a very brief lesson on what it is. There's 7 standards to discipline somebody. You need just cause. You can't just wake up and say, I want him out of here because I'm not getting what I want. You need a reasonable rule or order. All right, there's some rules in there that I read the charges, they're reasonable. But one, the chief was charged with the PBA putting stuff on Facebook. All right, you want another? You got 13 lawsuits. You want 14? Have the chiefs go after the PBA for exercising their First Amendment right. Right. That is one of that might be my favorite stupidest charge that's out there. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing, and I cannot believe an attorney wrote that. He needs notice. They need notice of what's going on. He had no idea. You need a sufficient investigation. There was no investigation, with the exception of the ones he was cleared of already. You need a fair investigation. I don't need to explain that. But anyone here who's ever being accused of anything or a crime or an administrative, you have a right as a resident, as a citizen of the United States, to respond. It's established in Supreme Court law, all right? You have that right. You have a right to respond. Chief never had it. They called him in and said, this is what you did, get out of here. No louder, no hearing. Right? He's still waiting on the hearing. There's supposed to be proof. There's no proof that any of this took place. Equal treatment, there needs to be an appropriate penalty, but we're not going to get to that obviously yet because we all know what's going to happen. They're going to hire a hatchet person, and they're going to probably fire all 3 of them. So there's no legal basis for these charges, and it's obvious that it's an attempt to remove Chief Corpusero from office so the mayor and the business administrator can exact past revenge for past disciplinary actions taken against something like a family member, and they didn't agree with it. Okay, and to take control of the day-to-day operations of the police department. I have seen approximately, I think, over 60 hearings now as a hearing officer. If you hire a fair and objective hearing officer, he is going to dismiss them before the hearing on a motion. I've done that before. You need a hearing. You need a fair investigation. There's numerous procedural violations. Mayor Palmer and businessman Umba, they failed to understand and acknowledge that Chief Corpusero, like every New Jersey police chief, has 2 bosses. That's by statute. They can't, but part of that is the administration can't control the day-to-day operation, only the chief does. This is established since 1970. There's a law enforcement chain of command. As I said, the chief has 2 bosses. Law enforcement matters, the chief of police answers to the prosecutor. It's no if at crime, anything to do with investigations, internal affairs. I'll get into that in a minute. Non-issues, they'll answer to the appropriate authority. Budget, what needs to be done in the police department to run in an orderly fashion, with the exception of non-operational issues. They can hold the chief within the budget. Those are reasonable expectations. It's clear they're overstepping, and the root cause for these bogus charges served on Corpusero, Chief Corpusero and Captain Mayo is because they both refuse to be puppets and to do their bidding. That's just what it is, nothing more. Chief's Responsibility Act was established by law many years ago, I believe in 1981, in order to stop this type of political interference. And I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. The chief has the absolute right by statute to administer and enforce rules and regulations, directives, and discipline of the force of its officers and personnel. Well, already the chief's been disciplined because he didn't discipline somebody that probably didn't need to be disciplined. But they have the exercise and discharge function powers of the duties of the force. They prescribe duties and assignments of all subordinates of the duties enforced. Well, that's part of one of the disciplines because he assigned somebody as an acting sergeant. Anybody was told, well, someone else was on the list. He had a valid reason, but he didn't get a chance to explain it. Delegate his authority as he deemed necessary for the efficient operation, and he has to report at least monthly. The Chief Responsibility Act was enacted to grant statutory powers to police chiefs by mandating that they shall be in charge of their departments and providing for specific duties and responsibilities and to prevent interference by elected officials individually in the operation of the police force. That is happening. The statute is being violated. Now, Mayor Palmer and Business Administrator Umba are interfering with the chief's duties and need to stay out of the day-to-day operations of the police department. They want total control over Chief Corpusera or whoever's going to sit in that seat. And for obvious reasons, you need to have it stop. There are numerous incidents of the interference, and I know everyone probably wants to go home eventually. I could sit up here for a very long time and discuss them with you, but I'm just going to highlight a few of them. The business administrator was threatening to tow a vehicle from the Saleh Court that was being held as part of an investigation. Chief Corpusera called me, what do I do? I said, he said, no, he just sent me a threatening email, move it. I said, this is what you do. Send him an email back and tell him you'll put him in handcuffs and arrest him. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the obvious answer. You don't interfere with the police investigation. It's also demanding IA and confidential files. All right, the prosecutor had to step in. The mayor wanted a police radio or one of the police channels and access to the police department. I know the prosecutor did step in on the access to the police department. Now, the business administrator has this fixation on cameras in the police department, and I can only assume to spy on police officers. Why, I don't know. It's improper though, for many reasons. You have domestic violence victims. You have confidential informants, right? No one's saying cares about the front of the building but places that inside the building can't have. Now, I don't know what type of background info the governing body was privy to prior to hiring Brandon Umba, but you should know that in 2 previous towns, Lumberton and Manchester, he had an issue with the chief because he wanted access to the cameras. I don't know what the fixation is, but the prosecutor in Burlington and Ocean County, and I have the letters, well, I know I have one of the letters, had to step in and direct him to cease and desist. Now, history repeats itself in Spotswood because he was advised again by our prosecutor, that's a really bad idea. All right? So, Mr. Umba, congratulations. You're the only business administrator that I know in New Jersey that has had 3 prosecutors tell you to knock it off. That's impressive.
I would like to see Prosecutor Kofina's letter then.
Okay. I said 2. I know 2. I may have 3, but I have the email from Lumberton. Can I
with
talk?
all due
Are
respect,
you talking my time? You're not being respectful.
I've
Say
never
what you want
asked-
after
I've
I'm
never
done.
asked for the cameras inside the police department. You attributed to
No,
this
I
public
haven't.
that I'm
No, I
asking
haven't.
for the public. No, I didn't.
Mr. President, Councilman, can I speak, please? Can you keep in order? I appreciate that.
Everything I've
All
done
right, so
with
you
Chief
can't have
Corpusera-
access to police cars. I can talk all night louder than you, trust me.
Yeah, you can, absolutely.
Now, in closing, I want to, I don't blame the governor. I know you're in a bad spot, but the conduct of the mayor and the business mayor is impacting the police department and the borough. Everyone's losing in this situation. All right, the taxpayers, the police officers, everyone up here. Cost of litigation to the taxpayers and instability in the police department is taking place. I think we all know that. All right, you're losing good police officers. I know. I hired them. I know it's funny, but quite frankly, I'm going to poach more of them because you got some damn good cops in this police department. I'm going to hire more of them. Some of my colleagues, I highly recommend you do the same. All right, you got good police officers. All right? But this interference, and it's gone too far. Everyone needs to get in a room and resolve this. Everyone needs to put their egos in check. All right, but I mean, this officer I hired said, "Why are you leaving?" And I think I knew why. He says, "My stomach hurts going to work every single day." I said, "Why?" He said, "We don't know what's coming from the top." And I said, "The chief?" He said, "No, the politics."
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want to get into it, and I don't want to press the kid. But I do thank you for him. He's an amazing police officer. He's going up. I definitely believe he'll be sitting in my chair one day. So, recruitment and retention in most agencies is a problem. If you keep this dysfunction, you're going to have a problem operating a police department. You look at the city of East Orange, it's a little different environment but there's some small departments checkered throughout the state. They're having a problem fielding shifts. All right? And a lot of it has to do with dysfunction. Chief Corpusero has spent 30 years dedicated to unblemished service to the residents of Spotswood. He's well respected in the county, as you can see, all the chiefs here, and well respected in the state of New Jersey. I urge council to do this. Let's get the ball rolling. Put a resolution on the agenda supporting the return of Chief Corpusero and Captain Mayo, throw Sasso into full duty, along with the dismissal of these bogus charges. You have the authority to do so. The mayor and business administrator, they know that. This is why they're fighting so damn hard with taxpayer dollars to prevent you from hiring an attorney for guidance. I also urge you to pass a resolution demanding that Mayor Palmer and the administrator recuse themselves from any policy or decisions involving the police department until this litigation is adjudicated. You can easily appoint the council president as the appropriate authority. Till all these matters are resolved, there's no conflicts. Stop the bleeding of the taxpayers' dollars and the devastation of the morale. Take action tonight. I do suggest you budget more funds. And it looked like a nice budget. That thing's going up next year. You know, I'm not saying this in jest or being funny. I mean, everyone has their opinion with hiring these grant writers. In South Brunswick, we write our own grants. I got a brilliant idea. Instead of having $500,000 in salary, sit home with pay, bring them in to write grants. They're not that hard. You write the grant, you fill out the application. If you have a technical question, they usually have help. It's not that hard. They're not that hard to find, it's the internet. So, that, I'm closing out. I want to thank you tonight for giving me the opportunity, and I urge you to take action, and please do so swiftly. Bring these police officers back to work, let them do their job, and let's come up with some kind of resolution where everyone gets in a room, checks their egos, and put these matters to bed. Nobody's getting rich. Anyone I've ever talked to that's been involved with this litigation, even ones that got over $1 million, will tell you it's not worth it. It's not worth the toll it takes on you, your coworkers, and your family. Let's resolve this and let's move on. Thank you.
Conley Ronco, Manalapan Road. Several months ago, I had requested all of the tort claims that we currently had at that time. Never got a response to it, shocking. So I requested statewide. I recently got a copy of one of the tort claims, and I'd like to read this to you. This directly impacts my life. In September 2023, the unfair and pretextual attacks against claimants, this is Corpusero's tort claim, continued. Unfortunately, the addition of B.A. Umba to the Palmer administration brought a whole new level of nefarious behavior. B.A. Umba used his influence as the then state assemblyman to seek protections at the expense of the department. Specifically, B.A. Umba claimed a borough resident had scared him at a borough council meeting when she said he was a predictable douchebag. That would be me. You are a predictable douchebag. B.A. Umba then contacted the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office and reported that he was in fear for his safety as a state assemblyman, which in turn sparked a call to the New Jersey State Police, who then showed up at my house on October 13th. Because apparently if you use the word predictable douchebag, that's some kind of threat to physical bodily harm. He then called the New Jersey State Police Executive Protection Unit for their investigation and enforcement action. However, B.A. Umba went on to state to the other law enforcement agencies that, quote, he does not trust the Spotswood Police Department, end quote, in order to gain their assistance. Such disloyal, offensive, and derogatory statements made by the borough's own B.A. caused claimant great professional embarrassment and were widespread enough to be reported back to the claimant. B.A. Umba thus vilified and defamed claimant and the department to law enforcement agencies they deal with on a regular basis, including the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office and the New Jersey State Police. A few days later, B.A. Umba then became the complainant on an IA matter against claimant and two other officers being targeted likely with the advice and assistance of Mayor Palmer, as per their usual modus operandi of using the IA process as a shield and a sword. My husband got called into the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office on an IA that was filed against Mayo and Corbacero, because apparently we are in cahoots and there's a conspiracy theory. Umba complained that all the target officers were engaged in the dissemination of confidential information solely because he viewed CCTV footage and watched the borough resident he fears enter the department. Again, without any actual proof or reliable information, BA Umba immediately defamed claimant and baselessly imputed serious misconduct to him. BA Umba contacted the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office with his devised and imaginary conspiracy theory because he is aware that all such complaints need to be investigated per the IAPP. Clearly, BA Umba is now following the Palmer administration playbook and continues to subject claimant and certain of his staff members who are at the top tier targets of Mayor Palmer to retaliatory adverse action.
You are a predictable douchebag. You are also a pompous ass. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your husband screwed up and now you're trying to go after the police department for it. We all know it. Just resign, Jackie, call it a day, and take your idiots with you. Because we're all done, we're all fed up. This is costing us millions of dollars. Have you done your job yet, Brandon, and figured out the retirement crap? Oh, that's right, you've only been here a year. You haven't done that yet. Just as for record purposes here, his brother's also a state trooper. How ironic. Make sure the state police come to my house again. 118 Manalapan Road.
I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.